Hello and welcome to another episode of the Best You interview series. It's Gary here again. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to join me today. And today I'm joined by therapist turned declutter coach Elisa Lindstrom, who is here to talk about her passion in helping people sort through their stuff, literally and figuratively, when other methods that they maybe have employed before haven't worked for them. Elisa supports her clients by asking deeper questions to help them understand their attachment to items better and communicate to their authentic self to make their home become a reflection of who they truly are. And when Elisa and I were we're getting to know each other prior to recording, this is something that's quite close to my heart because I have clutter people in my life, and it's something that I have a very different view on in terms of what's okay and what's not. I don't know even know if I'm allowed to say that, and we can talk about that once we get to Elisa's part. But it's one of these things where I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated why some people are okay with clutter, and I would call it mess, and the kind of mess tolerance between individuals and such. And sometimes when I fall off the wagon and I'm not as neat and tidy as I like to be, and other times when I am super anal about it, where I'm thinking that doesn't go there, why did you put it there? So I'm very, very fascinated to have this conversation. So today there's going to be a lot of self-serving work for me here today as we chat. Elisa, thank you very, very much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm delighted. I'm absolutely delighted to have you. So to start off with, can you tell us, the kind of moment in your life? Obviously, as part of your bio, there, therapist turned coach, advisor, consultant, and what was that moment in your life that sparked that transformation from the therapist to the declutter coach?
Right. So I don't know if there's a moment specifically that sparked it, but very, very quickly or very briefly, what happened was I was a social worker and therapist in New York
Yeah.
around the time of 9/11.
Oh,
Yeah, and I was working first as a caseworker and social worker with women and children in homes with a lot of domestic violence and working with a lot of trauma.
right.
And then I became a therapist. I went to school for social work in the United States. At least you can be a social worker. I know this isn't true throughout the world. So I'm just going to say in the United States, you can get a clinical social work degree, which means that then you can be a therapist.
Right.
And I went and got licensed and did all of the things um, and continued working with trauma, and I burnt out.
Right.
And then it happened when I happened to be getting married to my first husband, and we started a family. And so my focus was on just trying to raise an emotionally healthy family, right?
Right.
But what happened was we moved from New York to the Chicago area, and we were living in a 900 square foot two-bedroom apartment or condo.
Yeah.
And it was tight with a toddler. It was very hard.
Yeah.
And I kept on trying to declutter and declutter and declutter and try to make it feel like it was spacious. And it was very hard because there was so much stuff.
Yeah.
And so I kept on trying all these things, but I kept on, when I was doing it, I felt like I was shaming myself while I was doing it. Like I wasn't doing right. And I wasn't doing it in a way that everyone else was doing it and everyone else knew what they were doing and I didn't know. Like I kept on putting it back on myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Fast forward, um, it turned out that that relationship ended. And when that relationship ended, actually what happened was my life completely changed for the better in a lot of ways. I did a lot of self exploration, realized that I was a people pleaser, did a lot of work around that. And so I did all of this work on myself that then I was able to take everything I knew from decluttering
Yeah.
And everything I knew from being a therapist and social worker, and everything I knew from what I had learned during this time of divorce and self-discovery, and I combined it all. And I realized I wasn't doing anything wrong when I was decluttering. I just wasn't asking myself the right questions. And I was following people because, decluttering isn't one size fits all.
Yeah.
Like clutter, the reason we have clutter isn't one size fits all.
Yeah.
So, um, and decluttering isn't one size fits all. So I sort of like took everything that I knew from all these three different things and I started helping my friends with it. And I mean, I helped myself with it first, and then I started helping my friends with it. And people kept on saying, Elisa, you should do this for a living. And I was like, how could I do this for a living? Right.
Yeah.
And then, time keeps on going. And then eventually I'm just like, why am I not doing this and helping people? Because there's so much, shame around clutter, and there's so much guilt and all of these feelings, and that I can see, no one's really touching on it. And here I've got all these skills where I can help people.
Yeah.
And I became a social worker because I wanted to help people. So it's in my blood to want to change the world, help people, make people feel better about themselves, help people feel better in their homes.
Yeah.
So that's why I did this. So there wasn't a spark, but it was, sort of a low burning fire or
Yeah,
something.
a prolonged series of events that led you to that realization, which is great. And then having that positive affirmation from friends and the people that you helped to say, this is an industry. People will pay for this. People need this. Why are you not doing this? So hopefully it wasn't said with the intent to rack more guilt onto you,
Right.
but it was said from a positive space. That's certainly what it sounded like. So then I came across a similar type of person who, not so much from a coaching perspective, but just had a passion for helping people organize, and she'd said, I just love to create order when there's not order, and I love to help people, organize things in a way that would be more palatable for them, which sounds like one part of what you do, but there was no, and I didn't ask a lot of clarifying questions at the time, but there didn't sound like there was a lot of emotional work attached to that. It was more practical, tactical. Here's a thing. What do you want it to look like? What's preventing us from getting it to that spot? Help me help you. So, with the emotional part, obviously, people can find the process of probably gaining or creating the clutter in the first place, and then the thought of decluttering to be strong in terms of the emotions. You talked about guilt earlier, just there. How do you approach that with clients, and to connect their emotions to the clutter and the decluttering process? Is that a difficult thing to do?
Um, well, I mean, I'm used to, as an ex-therapist, I'm used to holding space for people. So that's not a
Yes.
difficult thing for me to do. But it usually starts with you know, acknowledging that we are enough exactly as we are.
Yeah.
And the clutter in our homes is not a reflection of us.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of the way we're handling a situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And taking the shame out of there is like the first thing to do when helping someone with clutter. When
Yeah.
it's yourself, it's a family member, friend. This first step is to get rid of all of the shame, because that's where you're going to get all of the pushback. Like if you go at it and you're like judging, you're not
Yes.
gonna, it's not creating a loving space of um listening and what's a good word? Just a loving space. I'll just say, I can't think of another. I mean, listening is so integral to the whole thing of like listening to what is going on with the person, and what is the story? Because there's so many stories of why we hold on to things, and it's never the same story. We're all different.
Exactly, and you've mentioned guilt and shame a few times already. Is that the prevalent emotions that when you get engaged with a client, those are the kind of underlying common emotions?
I think that those are some of the basic ones that come up, but then there's also when I've been going into people's homes. I mean, so I work online, but I also go into people's homes.
Yeah.
And when I go into people's homes, and because they just are just overwhelmed and cannot even think, sometimes there's also grief going on,
Yeah.
and sometimes there's trauma.
Right.
And if their lives feel chaotic, if someone's life feels chaotic, and it's hard to keep your home sorted and organized, you just don't have time to even think about that, right? That's like a that's way too high on the Maslow's order of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if that those are the other, I mean, there's a slew of feelings, but those are the majority of the feelings that come through. Yeah.
Yeah. I was chatting with a client recently there about something very, very similar, and overwhelm was something that was coming in, and it was literally, I don't know where to start. And I'm also living in this space at the same time, so it's not a static environment where I can fix one thing and then that will be fixed and I can move on. There's other people in and around the place and space that are contributing to this as well, so we need some sort of hard stop. And in lieu of, a mini non-threatening house fire, and I say that completely jesting, of course, there's it's a very difficult thing to do. So my contemplation with the client was really around, it took you a long time to get to this spot. So don't expect overnight miracles, and be fair, and and be fair with yourself, truly, is what I was saying. That if it took you 15, 20, 25 years to get to this spot, I'm not saying it's going to take you 25 years to get back out of that to something that's appropriate and livable for you. But, break it down, be realistic. It's not a weekend's worth of rolling up your sleeves and hard endeavour to start to purge and clean and tidy and do that kind of thing as well. And it was, we'll see over time how it lands and how it landed. But, to try to sprinkle that level of reality on it, to say, what do you want this to look like? We're actually working on an inventory first to say what's there, and then you can start to make some decisions as you go down. So just on that vein, and you mentioned the trauma that's attached to that, and sometimes people will be decluttering for reasons that are not the most positive. Say, for example, your example earlier in terms of a breakup or a death of a family member. I used to work in social housing back home in Scotland, and we used to do empty house inspections when people had passed on. And you're basically walking into like a livable space that someone was living in very, very recently, and everything just looks like the person could be sitting on the chair, but they're not. And then you're trying to contact family members to say there are a lot of possessions here, maybe they're known family members, so I could understand that. But when you get to that spot, when you're dealing with the additional event and the grief in the morning or whatever other strong emotions that are going with that, like, how do you see that being like a part of the healing process for that person? Is it something that you find helps, or potentially you're kind of in the way and it's not really the right time to be considering such?
I think it really depends on where the person is, right?
Yeah.
If the person is at a space where they're open to letting it be more than just clearing the clutter, and letting it be, let's sometimes I get a little woo-woo with my clients. I think of it as woo-woo, but it's actually not. It's more like regulation. But when we have sorted through a room, right? Like, we will tackle rooms at a time, not the whole place at a time, but if it's one-on-one and I'm in their home, we'll go in and we will work on one room. And once that room feels calm, especially if it's someone who's gone through trauma,
Mhm.
I'll have them sit in their room, that room without me, and just like breathe. And like, this is a safe space. And like, have them say to themselves, like, this is now my safe space. This is an okay space, because that is a big transformation, and feeling like the walls around you and the space around you is a safe space is so important. So yeah, I'm not sure if I exactly answered the question that you asked, but yeah.
No, you did actually in the first sentence. You did say and it really just depends on where the person is at. They might think that decluttering and getting rid is is the right thing to do at that particular time. And then my thought pattern at the time was, going through that journey, do you have moments where they say stop, stop, I can't do this for right now, I thought this was going to be easier than it is, and I'm just not ready for that particular moment, because you must be dealing with a plethora of emotions at that particular time.
Yeah, and a lot of my one-on-one clients though are moving.
Right.
But we never do more than two, like I would never tell anyone to declutter for more than 2 hours, maybe 3 hours at a time. And
Okay.
in fact, that's usually what I don't say at all. But working one-on-one, I would say, if you're working one-on-one with someone and they are there holding space for you, helping you through it, then 2 to 3 hours. But if you're doing it on your own, don't even do that because you're asking yourself all these questions and then you're also going through all these emotions for some of the stuff, right? Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that, just even a wee bit more practical time boxing to say you're going to be at your most effective, with an accountability partner for 2 to 3 hours. And then even if you're in the zone, even if you're like, this is great, we're actually making great progress, would it be fair to say at the very least take an appropriate break, convalesce, breathe,
Absolutely,
release?
absolutely. And I yeah, without a doubt. And I would even say if you have an accountability partner, someone who's very, very neutral,
Mm,
who is with you to help you declutter, um, I would say even go 45 minutes, set a timer. And this
yeah,
is what I do with my clients. I set a timer. After a certain point, then take a break, 15 minutes. So it's been said 45 minutes is a great time, right? So 45 minutes, go through it, take a 15-minute break, then do another 45 minutes. And then after those 45 minutes, then in the last 15 minutes, take what you need to the trash, take what you need to recycling,
yeah,
get the car loaded up with everything that's going to the donation center, right?
yeah,
And then drive to the donation center and don't keep it in the trunk like
yeah.
a lot of people do. Yeah.
Would you know?
Um,
Oh, go
yeah.
ahead. Sorry.
No, no, no. That's what I was gonna say. Like, so yeah, I would definitely break it up and then take a break. So 45 minutes and 15 minutes is a great, it's so easy to remember that.
Yeah, and I love that. And what I was going to say there was, you're actually bringing up the kind of wider part of the process in terms of that, because it's not just the literal physical acts that you'll be doing and taking inside the home. Then there is, okay, what do I do with this? Is it recycling? Is it garbage? Is it donations? Is it, gifting to someone else who said they wanted it? Whatever that looks like. So adding that practical reality to saying it's not just this one thing of getting everything out of that room. You need to be able to have and understand and build into that process of what's going to happen afterwards, or you're not done. And you mentioned there, people just kind of, it makes it to the back of the car and then it kind of just stays there. So you've just kind of shuffled the clutter around a wee bit, which is fascinating, because I do love that, being very cognizant of the actual life cycle of saying this is when you're done. It's done when it's no longer in your possession. It's done when it's no longer accessible to you or something. I'm just obviously making this up. I don't know this like you do. But yeah, I really, it's more real about that, because there are, it's like everything in life, if you think, well, it takes me 5 minutes to do that thing, so it should only take me 5 minutes. And you say, well, then you need to get prepared to do it. That's about another minute and a half, and then when you're finished that, it's another minute. So it's actually kind of 8 or 9 minutes. It's not just the 5 minutes, and it's those time management realities that I think a lot of people end up completely misunderstanding or missing completely, and then wondering why they get stuck and blocked at certain points in time. So I'm
Right.
really glad we talked about that part. So what would you suggest to someone who, at the very beginning, they swing open the door physically or virtually, depending on how you're dealing with them, and they say, I have no idea where to start. I am completely overwhelmed. It took me all of my courage to even reach out to you. I don't think this is going to work. What's the point of even doing this? I've lived like this forever. How do you deal with the overwhelm when you get, especially I would imagine in the more early stages?
So, yeah, so this is actually, so we were talking about 45 minutes if you have a accountability partner,
Yeah,
but let's say you don't have an accountability partner. Let's say it's just you.
yeah,
Um, and what I would say is actually not doing 45 minutes. 45 minutes is too much. I would actually say 15 minutes a day.
right.
And because you literally, when you do 15 minutes of decluttering a day, you can put it down, walk away, knowing that the next day you're coming back to that one thing.
Yeah,
So, as a social, this is where the social worker in therapy comes in. And you might already know this from your background, but breaking a huge task into very small, manageable pieces.
absolutely.
So, let's say you do, and this is actually what I would say. If someone has a house that is head to toe full of clutter, I would say just open the front door, have three bags with you, a bag for trash, a bag for recycling, and a bag for donations.
Yeah,
Set the timer for 15 minutes. And from the front door, spend whatever that front door opens to, your living room maybe, or like a entryway, spend 15 minutes sorting through that.
yeah,
And then the next day, those three bags, take them with you to the next section, do 15 minutes. Like just slowly work your way through the whole entry area of your home, and then maybe the living room and do that, and then maybe the dining room and do that. Don't even touch the kitchen. People get obsessed with the kitchen as the first thing, and I think that that's just like a big project that's
mhm,
going to be overwhelming.
yeah,
But when you do get to the kitchen, one cabinet at a time. Don't open all the cabinets and pull everything out. You're
yeah,
just going to create a big pile of mess and overwhelm yourself. And that's not the point. The point is so you can get through it. And
yeah,
when you start doing that, it just makes it so much easier, manageable, and you end up actually getting it done. It's just,
yeah.
yeah.
I love that. Is there a particular significance of the front door in terms of starting to get some momentum?
I mean, if you didn't want to start at the front door, you could do the living room or dining room. I would not do something big like a kitchen with all those cabinets in it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
But I was just thinking, you walk through your front door every day. Maybe you walk through your back door every day, but
yeah,
it's just like a good starting place, right? Because then every day that you're coming home from work, you open the door, it's a little bit nicer. It's a little
yeah,
bit nicer. It's a little bit,
yeah,
and then it just builds. I
yeah,
wouldn't jump into like a bedroom or anything. I would really just do the living spaces first.
yeah. And in
Yeah.
terms of when people are decluttering, did you come across some clients who would like literally or maybe figuratively employ other people to do the actual work under their supervision? Like if they're infirm, if they're not able to do it on their own, but they see and
Oh,
know
right,
a
right,
need
right.
for that, where they're saying, right, okay, I can't do it. My son, my daughter, my nephew, my neighbour, this person, this handyman, whatever it is, has come and offered their services. So, do you have that situation where there's a kind of third party involved?
I haven't had that exact situation. I actually have worked one-on-one with a client who couldn't because of her heart issues, and she
Yeah,
lived on the third floor of an apartment.
yeah,
Like I did all of the really heavy lifting and then took everything out, right?
right,
So she wouldn't have to deal with that.
yeah,
So that's completely possible.
yeah,
And in those cases, then the person could just sit down in the room, and it doesn't have to be 15 minutes. That could be like a 45 minute or a 2 hour with the 15 minutes in between.
Yeah.
Not in between, but the 15 minutes and then the final 15 minutes. Like that's another way that that can be done. That absolutely can be done. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's just a fascinating way to go about it. I think most people, it's certainly something after this interview that I'm going to make a point of being more curious about in terms of people and their approach to clutter. I used to call it, I think I mentioned it in the earlier part of the interview, mess tolerance. But I think that's doing it a little bit of a disservice. It's clutter in general terms, and then sometimes clutter doesn't need to be messy, But my brain says that's too busy in that corner, therefore that's messy, therefore that is something that's going to cause me a little bit of heartburn and kind of move forward from there. So, what is one piece of guidance or advice that you would give listeners to help them become better at their clutter management?
So this is the other aspect of what I do and this is the part that I really love. There's this question that's thrown around a lot, and there's a lot of like decluttering questions that are thrown around a lot. Like, have you used this for 6 months? Have you used this in the past 6 months?
Yeah,
And I think that's a very, very valid question, but there's a lot of things that don't fall into that question,
yeah,
right? There's stuff that, no, I haven't used it in the past 6 months, but that doesn't mean I want to get rid of it,
yeah,
right? It doesn't get deeper. And so, what I, in order to manage clutter, like let's say you've sorted your home
yeah,
or you're in the process of sorting your home and you don't want the clutter to keep on coming back,
yeah,
um, you're going to have to get really real with yourself about what's important to you, who
yeah,
you are, why you're buying what you're buying. It's a lot of self-connection and thinking about like what reflects who you are. Is
yeah,
this what you want to have reflect who you are?
yeah,
Like it's actually really hard for me to shop now because I used to just love going to a store and saying, "Oh, that's so cute." But now I'll say, "Oh, that's so cute." And I have a teenager who would say, "Mom, you should get that." And I'd say, "I I I'm not going to get that. I'm just going to appreciate that it's really cute, but it's really
yeah,
not who I am anymore or
yeah,
where I want to go with my life, right?"
yeah,
And that I would say is, so important because we can declutter our home. But if we don't connect with that and we just keep on blindly buying things, we're going to have to keep on decluttering our home.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, what I'm really hearing here is intention, and that's going to be quite difficult for someone, repeating the process exactly as you said there, where decluttering just becomes another thing that they do as part of their regular practice instead of saying, well, the idea is that this is an event and or a destination, so to speak, and then the journey in and of itself is the work on yourself, the work in understanding your habits, your patterns, why you're doing what you're doing. How do you get how do you encourage clients to get to that level of clarity so that they can then build that clarity into their intentions? Is there any success stories you have to share?
Yeah, well, so what I love doing is journal questions, not like they have to sit down and write, but they
Mhm.
just literally, here's a question for you to think on,
Yeah,
right? And I've done this with a lot of my one-on-one clients, and now in my online programs, I've got it built into it. But just basic questions of like, what do you want your home to look like? What is when you're looking at your clothes and you're sorting through your clothes, yeah, sure, look at what's got holes in it, and yeah, sure, look at what's got what fits and what
yeah,
doesn't fit and all of that. But does that sweater reflect who you are? Is that where the image that that sweater gives you, is it who you are and where you want to go?
yeah,
Not just, and I love all the work Marie Kondo does, but the whole like, does it give you joy? Yeah, does it give you joy? That can be a question, but also like, have you used it for 6 months? Yes. Does it give you joy? Yes. Okay. Is this though something that reflects who you are?
Yeah.
Is this something that has deeper meaning to you than it's just, oh, it's cute?
Yeah. Yeah. And or I might use this again at some point in the future. Like I've had conversations like that. Why are you keeping that? I might need it at some point in the future. What does that look like then? Does it look like, if we were to get rid of this just now, say put it in the garbage for example, and then you had to go buy that again in 18 months time when you come to that point where you need that plate, bowl, mixer, spice, ingredient or something like that. What does future you look like in terms of how you feel, how you will approach that as an opportunity to go and replenish it, or like, are you okay with that version, or would you much rather say, I know this is somewhere here, let me go into the back of that cupboard and find that, and maybe just doing that kind of visioning exercises as well is something that I could see myself doing with clients as well, to say you get to choose how you treat future you. What do you want to do about that, and figuring that out? Because yes, fashions and trends and stuff can come back in again, and you'll be like, yeah, those jeans are way out right now, but in 7 years time, they'll be in again. 7 years time, you're going to be 7 years older. You're going to
Right. And your
be
body might not look the same, right?
exactly, and then maybe like that's not appropriate for 7 years older version of you anymore, or certainly not appropriate in terms of your own manifestation of how and who you want to be at that time as well. There's so much to it. This has been absolutely incredible, Lisa, and thank you very, very much for coming on the show. Before I let you go for today, where can people find out a bit more about you and your services?
Well, they can hop on my website, dearloves.com, dearlovesjustbreathe.com. It's
Yeah.
exactly as it sounds. They can follow me on Instagram at dearlovesjustbreathe. And if anything does interest them in terms of like the process of 15 minutes a day and the 3 bags, and they're worried that they're going to forget that for some reason. If you hop on my website, there is a free download with the 3 main strategies that I teach my clients, and they can just download that immediately, and then they'll have that in their hands or theoretical hands because it's a PDF, but
Virtual hands. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you very, very much again for your time. I've really, really enjoyed this, and I've learned a lot today. Thank you.
Oh, great, great. Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Hello again. Thanks again for tuning in to this episode, and I do hope that you found it valuable and gained some insights. I do have an ask for you. If you enjoyed this podcast, I would absolutely love it if you would connect with me on my socials, and that's at LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Just search for my name and do whatever it is you need to do there to follow me and stay updated with all the latest content, tips, and discussions. And for any more resources that you're looking for, feel free to visit my website, garygillen.com. And while you're there, you can book a free, no obligation 30-minute coaching call directly with me through the site. Whether you're looking to enhance your performance or tackle a new challenge, I'm absolutely here to help you succeed, and I would absolutely love to hear from you. Thanks very much again, and until next time, keep pushing towards your goals and getting better each and every day, my friend.